and I can't like,
And I believe.
or no, is this me? Am I on now?
That was the year the great Adolph Gaines graduated from NYU.
Were you able to locate out your,
Gaines.
I was able to, I was, and then I clicked on the panelist link and then it says,
His era to play at NYU. And then he played for about 15 years in the NBA. And then he
I
became.
think it's telling me to, I keep getting that. Oh, no, actually, let me go this way.
For another 20 years.
so, but you need to be in your,
Each time
when
his
you email
son
for
played,
some reason?
but his son didn't go to NYU.
Because we can.
They were a minor.
Yeah, I don't.
Well, now the Division III.
What you studied?
I went here for my MFA here in.
Oh, this is
In
me.
what?
Yeah, I
No,
went to
this
church
is me.
This
Yeah.
is,
Okay, this is me.
Dramatic
I'm
writing.
in now.
Ah,
no, I think this is Chanel. This camera, this computer is this one,
Yes.
the old, the chairperson for you here.
I don't know, it's wonderful.
So if you want, you can
That's what I
be
do.
like this, or
well,
with this one.
no,
But
What's better?
it's an important
Oh. Be there.
craft and art form.
I think so.
Keeps the city in business.
Because you want to see yourself here?
Very interesting.
I don't have to, I guess.
I don't know if
So
it's true in English.
you're gonna be on that.
Okay, so I guess-
Because the camera, what happened is the camera is the album there.
I guess what I'm saying is, it's
I
telling
don't know
me
who's moving here.
to do this.
Who isn't making
so-
big money in the art
Can I
now?
just be here?
Well, yeah.
And then it'll just picking me up.
That's what I'm
from the album.
saying about.
Yes, but everything you're saying, that the album is picking up.
But no.
I understand
yeah.
that. So does it matter that I'm not signed in as a panelist?
Found it.
No, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Unless you want to.
No, it's probably better for the sound. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. People have been patient long enough. All right, guys, sorry about the delay. I'm gonna start the,
It's great if you
Meeting.
can make a living at it.
okay,
Okay.
Well, we have to supplement it.
okay, very good. All right, with apologies to the many attendees who are here, I am calling the October 2nd Traffic and Transportation Committee meeting to order. My name is Debbie Nabavian. I am chair of the committee. Note to my colleagues who I'll now introduce, I have to my right, not important where she's sitting, Jody Hearson, James Bosley on my other side, Jay Mazer, Mary Anderson, and James Berlin.
Hello.
Our assistant chair, Leo Jimenez, will be somewhat late, so can I lean on you, Jody, for some very loose minutes, not to worry. We have a packed agenda, but I do want to just say that apologies and welcome Bruce Robertson, also from the committee. Jasmine, I know you are here and we are going to get to you, and I know it's not showing up on the agenda. I'm sorry, we had it was a little complicated with this co-naming. But thank you for being here. And then we will get to you after DOT. So just as a reminder to people that tonight we have presentations from DOT. And then we have a revocable consent, and I'm going to look at Jim Berlin to keep track of that one. We have a co-naming, and we have our capital and expense budget to do. So I am going to try to keep us moving tonight. Hey, Maria Luna, it's so nice to see you. And Jay,
The same thing I raised before the meeting. I still feel, since this is the Traffic and Transportation Committee meeting, and the city suffered, and this neighborhood suffered a traffic and transportation disaster on Friday due to the rainstorm. I feel it's incumbent on this committee to discuss the matter and, if possible, come up with some recommendations, if possible. But I do think we should at least have a discussion as to how well the subways and buses ran or didn't run during the rain disaster on Friday and street flooding as
Street
well.
flooding is not our department.
What?
Street flooding is not this committee.
Okay, guys, I have a long agenda. I will add that in new business. I'm not committing to how we're gonna handle it tonight or not handle it, but we can talk about it at the end of the meeting. All right?
I'm not sure that's okay. I'm really not. That is, this is, we're supposed to be representing the people who live here. And people have had amazingly bad problems on Friday, and I don't think it's a question to be dealt with in passing. That's just my opinion. If no one else feels that way, that's fine also. But those are my strong feelings on the question,
I take
and
your
I
point.
wanted them recorded.
Okay, I take your point. I think we might just have a difference of sort of where to put it in the meeting and sort of where I think we fit in on this topic, but it was a huge event. And the system did fail in a lot of places, and we'll put it at the end. Lyle, is it just you tonight, or is Dan gonna attend?
Evening, everyone. No, I have a few colleagues of mine from our pedestrian projects group, Dan Wagner and Yue Wu. If they can be bumped up to panelists.
Oh, there you're going. Oh, hi, Indiana. So I just want to say we have a few board members writ large. We have Indiana Porta, and we have I thought I saw one more. Maybe. Hey there. All right. All right, so I will hand it over to DOT wants to present us. Thank you. DOT, and I hope Daniel give the perspective of how many years you've looked at 165th and Riverside, or decades as the case may be. And I got a little preview of this in the spring as they were sort of finalizing the recommendation. So I'm glad to finally be at this point. And with that, I'll hand it off to you, and then we'll just do a quick touch base about as well after that about DOT's response to all the issues at Margaret Corbin Circle and drag racing and what they've tried to do. And let's kick off.
All right. Thank you very much. My name is Dan Wagner. I am an assistant director with the pedestrian unit at the DOT. And Yue Wu is going to actually be the one leading the presentation. But just as a quick background, that since you already mentioned it, yes, we originally received this request in 2013 and have been working on it intermittently, but the whole time. So it's been a long time, and we're happy to be able to finally present something to the board. But as you'll see, it's a difficult location. So Yue, why don't you take it away?
Thanks, Dan. Thank you for having us tonight. My name is Yue, project coordinator at DOT's pedestrian unit. So let me share my screen. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. Yes, so I will be managing the project at Riverside Drive and 165th Street. Today I will present the proposed improvements for this intersection. I will be going over the background of the project, the existing conditions, and our proposed plan. And there will be time for Q&A at the end of the presentation. So before going into details about the intersection, I would like to go over very quickly why we are working at this location. DOT got the request from Department of Park and Rec to improve the neighborhood access to Fort Washington Park, specifically at the 165th Street and Riverside Drive. That is location A on the map here to your right. And we have also identified location B and C for intervention because they are on the route to get to the park. And B is at the George Washington Bridge ramps, and C is at Henry Hudson Parkway ramps. And we have already presented the proposal for location B and C to you as shown the proposed condition in the slide here. And CP12 voted in support of our project in spring 2020. And today our focus is really location A, and we will go into that now. So I'm sure you are familiar with this intersection. This is at 165th Street and Riverside Drive. To the west of the intersection is the entrance to Dog Run. And at the northeast corner is the New York Presbyterian Hospital, Columbia University Medical Center. Both are destinations that generate pedestrian traffic. And in late 2018, the signal timing was adjusted here at this intersection. The westbound to northbound right on 165th Street was changed to no turn on red. Aside from the connectivity and accessibility issues, safety is another important issue we need to address here. In total, there were 69 injuries at this intersection between 2016 to 2020. And there are 13 pedestrian injuries, among which one severe injury. 6 of the pedestrian injuries occurred while pedestrians crossing with the correct signal. And we have observed pedestrians crossing without crosswalk regularly because there's only one crosswalk at this intersection. This really creates an unsafe condition here. Now, we will review the existing conditions, and I will explain the issues we have identified. As I mentioned before, there's only one crosswalk for the entire intersection. The pedestrian only has 7 seconds of protected time to cross the right turning lane here. Additionally, the right turning lane has a very high volume, 800 right turning vehicles per hour. And this makes it very stressful for pedestrians to cross the lane. And in addition to that, the crossing distance is very long. The north-south is 51 feet and the east-west is 104 feet. We are concerned about not only the marked crosswalk, but also the unmarked crossing, because that's where people cross. Instead of taking the legal route, which is 950 feet to travel north-south, people are crossing directly here, the 51 feet. And they are crossing behind the vehicles because the stop bar is ahead of the curb line here. This is again unsafe. This is the existing signal timing. We have 5 phases, which is very complicated and confusing. And the right turn is red for only 7 seconds out of 90 seconds. It's phase B here. And this is the only time pedestrians can cross without conflict. the remainder of signal cycle is flashing yellow or yield. Now, let's look at the proposed plan. And first, I would like us to keep in mind that the improvements we are presenting today will be implemented in-house with DOT's in-house resources. That means the tools available to us are relatively low budget compared to the big capital projects. But we are able to use these tools efficiently to address the issues we identified before. So this is our proposed plan. I will go over the interventions one by one. So number one, we are installing 2 new crosswalks, the north-south and east-west. And we are installing graveled or painted pedestrian space as represented in the cream color here at the northeast corner and southeast corner. This pedestrian space provide more queuing space for pedestrians. They also helps to shorten the crossing distance. And number 3, we are installing concrete median extension on Riverside Drive. This also helps to shorten the crossing distance. So the 3 interventions I just mentioned are designed to improve pedestrian safety and accessibility. But the next 2 interventions I will talk about were designed to reorganize traffic flow for better operation. So number 4, we are proposing to add a designated left turn, southbound left turn lane on Riverside Drive. This will help to reduce the delay on the southbound traffic, because without the dedicated left turn lane, vehicles going southbound can be stuck behind the left turning traffic. And number 5, we are proposing to add a right turn lane on 165th Street. This is to accommodate the high volume of right turning vehicles on 165th Street. Number 6, we are revising the signal timing, which I will show in detail in a later slide. With the proposed condition, we are creating safe conditions for pedestrian crossing. We have shortened the crossing distance. The north-south will be 45 feet and the east-west will be 66 feet. And the stop bars are relocated to meet standard intersection design. And the next slide is about the changes we need to make of the curbside space. In order to clarify vehicle movement, we are proposing to convert 17 short-term parking spaces on Riverside Drive to full-time moving lane to accommodate the left turn lane I mentioned before, to reduce the delay on the Riverside Drive southbound. And we are converting 11 long-term parking space to a new merge lane from Upper Riverside Drive. So traffic coming from Upper Riverside Drive and Riverside Drive there need to be a merge lane for them to merge going north. And then we are converting 9 parking spaces to the second full-time right turn lane on the 165th Street. Again, this is to accommodate the high volume right turning traffic. And we are adding 2 parking spaces next to the new concrete median extension on Riverside Drive. So overall, we are reallocating 35 parking spaces to travel lanes with the goal to create safer and better traffic operation. And this is the comparison of the existing and proposed signal timing. As you can see, the signal timing has been simplified to 3 phases. The fewer and simpler phases provide the benefit of increased safety, dedicated pedestrian crossing phases, and clarity of movements. And this is a comparison of the side-by-side existing condition and proposed plan. We believe our proposal provides several benefits. Improved signal timing can enhance pedestrian safety, and more crosswalks provide more accessible and safer crossing. And the new painted pedestrian space and the concrete median extension help to shorten crossing distance. The turn lanes were also redesigned for clearer vehicular movements. So this is the end of the presentation, and we would really appreciate your support for this project. If this project moves forward, the estimated implementation will be in 2024, next year, which will happen at the same time as the 2 locations further north. Now, Dan and I are ready to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much for the detailed presentation. I'll start with questions from our committee and then move to anything from board members and then go to the audience. And I know there's some requests from the chat as well for just a glad you have this picture up about this picture and what the various things mean. I guess, you know, when Dan presented this sort of like the initial thinking or early thinking last spring, I found, you know, it's something that's just, there's no perfect solution here. We have an entrance and people heading with wanting to get home and heading to the world's busiest bridge at the same place where people are trying to get to a park and do so safely, and all the other things that happen there around a big hospital. So in light of there's no most perfectly elegant solution, that seemed pretty good. I feel like when I saw this, it didn't involve that many the left turn lane on the southbound. And so we weren't losing all those parking spots on that. So it's a little new information that I need to sort of chew on. You answered about the implementation. Yeah, I guess before I pass it to my colleagues, I'm just curious, like, am I just not remembering right? Like, how were you thinking about the southbound issue? And it's not, can you just tell us a little bit more about like what you observe and what happens on the southbound Riverside Drive?
Right, that the southbound, no, that was a part of the, I don't mean to counter you.
No,
or
that's
anything like
fine.
that, but it was a part, we discussed it in the spring. The southbound left turn bay is actually a requirement from our signals unit. They basically said that with during the morning rush hour, the high volume of left turns, which I think is around 400, which is incredibly high for a left turn. They basically said that if we're going to work at a location, 395. If we're going to work at a location, we have to bring it to current standards. So that's what they said when we presented various timing options and design options to them. That was a few years ago. And the idea is essentially that if you're driving south, if you're coming off of the bridge and you're going to work in the morning, and you're heading south and you're in the left lane, but you don't need to turn left, you're invariably going to get stuck because those volumes are so high. That means there's people trying to turn left there, and it's creating a delay for the southbound, the 1,100 almost traffic going south. And they want to get people into their correct lanes, so either people have to merge to the right lane, that's way too many vehicles for one lane to handle, So they basically said you need 2 through lanes and a left turn bay if you're going to work here. So that's what the proposal incorporates.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
it does make sense.
I,
Okay,
Can we see how many, just again, see the parking that's disappearing?
yeah. Sorry, I forget that you two aren't on a Zoom. Which one of you had a hand up first?
I'm sorry.
Jim, and then Jay, and then Jim.
Thank you for this presentation. I'm completely thrilled with every aspect of it except for one. And that's the parking. Now, the reality of this area is it's heavily traveled by all kinds of people. And many of them, and this also includes residents at night, they actually use the public parking on the street. Now, there is a garage provided hospital available. It's probably expensive. And so the real, and again, this is, you probably hear this all the time, but these parking spaces, again, because this area is so important for the health of the entire, probably the entire city, because it's such a major medical center. These, I think the number was 37 or something like that. These parking spaces, or 37 parking spaces, if not here, then somewhere else should be made available. Now, again, I realize DOT doesn't have a magic wand and you can't just make parking spaces available. And the other reality, of course, is if the traffic isn't moving in a smooth and proper manner, this has all sorts of negative ramifications. Cars idling cause pollution, angry drivers drive stupidly and make everything very dangerous. So again, in terms of regularizing the intersection and all these, everything about it is wonderful, except that, this community, and it may well be that, people visiting the hospital as well, need these parking spaces. And, the other thing, and then I'll stop, is pretty much anything, and again, I'm not blaming DOT, I'm just blaming reality, and reality can be very annoying. Pretty much every wonderful thing you do takes away our parking spaces. And until we all get magic carpets or something, or, vastly improve public transportation, these parking spaces will be necessary. So I think we all have to put on our hats to figure out how to replace some of it. Obviously not here, because you need the lanes for these purposes, which I agree with. But, you can't just be taking away 37 parking spaces. Thank you.
And I'm just gonna tack on to that. Dan, remember we were talking about, again, because before, when I saw this, there wasn't those 17 related to the southbound name that I recall, but the ones on 165th, those are not all-day parking spots as it is, right? Those are not available during the rush hour.
Right. On this graphic, I tried
It's on the
to
wrong
take some
side, right?
screenshots and show you what exists there. So on 165th Street, there's an existing no standing Monday through Friday from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. So it's an evening rush hour where you're not supposed to stand there. But I don't know the daily ins and out of this location, but generally speaking, a no standing anytime at all times will have better compliance than just a rush hour reg. People will forget to move their car or something to that effect. So this will have a more impactful impact. Excuse me.
Right. So the 9 spots are not 24-hour spots, but
Nor are the 17 are not either. They also have a morning rush hour. You're not supposed to park there.
Oh, right. Okay. So we're losing 11 for real, you know, around the clock parking spots and then.
Adding to. So,
Right.
so it's, you're losing nine around total, you know, in some around the clock parking spaces, and then an additional 26 that are rush hour regulation parking.
Right. Okay. Jay and then James and then Mary.
My hand up before.
Oh, I'm sorry. Then after Mary, after Jay.
Well, could you go over again the left turn aspect of this? And let me preface it by saying, it's my ignorant understanding that left turns are inherently dangerous. So for instance, there are no left turns in the whole state of Michigan, and traffic seems to flow there. Of course, it's a lot less traffic than in New York City. So for my benefit, at least, maybe some other people, I don't know, could you go over the left turn aspect of that and in terms of safety?
Sure. You're talking about the southbound left turn?
Mhm.
Um, onto 165th, yeah. The essentially agreed that a left turn is more dangerous than a right turn. That's because a traffic, when you're turning left, you have to cross the oncoming traffic, and then you also have to cross the pedestrian crosswalk. So pedestrians, and so a lot of times somebody turning left will try and find a gap in the traffic, which is somewhat dangerous on its own. And then they may have forgotten to, because they were so frustrated with the high volumes of traffic in New York City, they may have forgotten to account for the pedestrians who are, in fact, more vulnerable than an oncoming car, and who are crossing slowly through the crosswalk. That's why the left turn is more dangerous than the right turn. In Michigan, they often create things that we call jug handle turns, where you veer right and then you circle around so you can turn, so you go straight rather than turning. We don't have that space here, and you know, we would love to do what I call a jug handle if that was within the realm of possibility. But unfortunately, we are not doing that level of work at this location at this time. But the proposal provides, if UA want us to move to the signal timing slide, I can try and walk you through it.
Mhm.
Yeah, there it is. In the bottom half of the graphic, in the second phase, we'll call it phase B, that signal timing will allow for the southbound left turn traffic to turn left, and all pedestrians will be held. So in this proposal, it's basically just a left turn arrow that you're used to seeing as a driver. And what that does is it's basically saying to the pedestrians, don't cross here, cars are coming. It will be reinforced by the westbound right-hand turn. Also, that traffic will also be moving at the same time. So any pedestrian who is approaching the intersection at this phase will feel very much that it is not their turn to go, and they will wait, hopefully. And so that's why this proposal makes the left turn a little bit safer. We're having a protected, that's called, in DOT parlance, that's called a protected left turn phase, where basically all the drivers can go and they know that they don't have to be dodging oncoming traffic or dodging pedestrians who are crossing the street at the same time. So that's why we believe it will be safer.
Okay, Mary?
I just wanted to back up what Jim said, and you know, because parking seems to be what's always an issue. Every time that there's something like this happens, which is a wonderful thing, in one way, but we keep getting a large number of parking spaces eliminated. That's an issue with the neighborhood, and if we want to, you know, to have a big protest again, about parking spaces, will go with this. And personally, I live in the neighborhood, so I don't want to see this. You know, I have everybody yelling at me, you know, like I did
Yeah, I know that wasn't really a question, but I do want to say that this proposal, it's really a question for, you're right, it's a question for the committee. Is the change in parking regulations at this location viable? I've worked on this for so long and tried so many different solutions. I'm very well aware that this committee and this community board very much values their parking spaces. I've presented to you many times over the years, and I'm very aware that that's what you're interested in, and I did everything I could. I really tried to reduce the amount of impact on parking, and we're only here today because there were no other solutions. We tried everything we could, and it's a question to you. We present this to you with the question of, if you support this, we can move forward with this. If you do not support this, it will remain as it exists today. And that's really the question for the committee to think about.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, I'm gonna hold my blabbing. James.
Was any consideration given, I don't know which way I should be speaking.
I'm doing the same thing.
Was any consideration given to carving out a lane on the southbound side of Riverside Drive where those 17 parking places are out of the park? I mean, I know we didn't lose parkland, but that was more of a wasteland than a usable park space. I was wondering if any consideration was
Well, out of the sidewalk, you're saying, in a sense,
the sidewalk
yeah.
and then into the park. I guess you have to put the sidewalk in further in. I was wondering if that was a possibility.
That involves a land taking from Department of Parks to DOT. It would probably impact the building there and the dog run, as somebody just said. But the truth is that is beyond the scope of the project's budget and capabilities. Like, we're not moving curb lines except for the one little location where it magically worked out with water and drainage. So essentially that's beyond the possibilities of this project. But it would be a wonderful solution. You're
right. Jody.
So this is my opinion, and I've been working with the residents of this area for a long time, and also Julio Batista on this issue. And I know it's a problem as far as parking, but I have to tell you that intersection is very dangerous for pedestrians. There is only one crossing walk, and we've just had a brand new sidewalk that was, installed. And if you get to the end of that sidewalk at that intersection, there is just no way that you can cross that intersection safely. And I really do believe that we need these crossing walks. And I believe that what you've set up as far as a design here is beautiful, and it's going to make it a lot safer for everybody, to include car traffic, movement, and to allow pedestrians to cross. And I personally am willing to forfeit some parking spaces for that to happen, my opinion. And I think to a large degree, the residents of this area wanted to. I mean, that's what I'm hearing.
Thanks, Jody.
Oh, can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
The only other thing that Julio has mentioned to me, Batista, and I just don't know that he could be here tonight, is
he's on the Zoom.
Oh, he is on?
Yeah.
Okay. Julio, you mentioned to me, and maybe you can just talk about it a little bit more, is that there's flooding on the east side of that intersection whenever we have storms. And I just don't know whether that should be incorporated into the design plan or not.
Julio, I did get, yeah. Oh, good.
Oh, great. I just saw that. Thank you. So yeah, so on the south side of, I guess 168th and Riverside Drive, every time it rains, the whole area floods. So it makes it hard, well, it makes it difficult for anyone to really be able to cross then if they want to go to the dog run, for example, to even cross 168th Street because it's all flooded. So it makes it quite difficult for people to maneuver that area when it rains. I do have one question now that I sort of was able to join. And if it's possible, Debbie, am I able to?
Please, and I'm sorry, I should have had you promoted as a panelist, and I actually am interested to hear point of view from the hospital.
Sure. Well, this is one of the things I'm just looking from the drawing that's there. So we have, parking that's going to be eliminated north of 165th Street on the north side. Now, based on this, I'm not sure why we actually need to lose that space, because if you're eliminating that right turn where, already there's people parked there. So I don't know, exactly why that's the case. And also on the south side of 165th Street, that additional parking space, is it because we're taking, based on this design, it looks like we're taking maybe part of the parkland and creating a sidewalk, which then I guess eliminates some sort of traffic lane. So I'm somewhat confused by this whole design, and in terms of why can it just be more simpler to create that crosswalk on the south side to enable people to actually cross the street while having to go to the north side to 165th, instead of having this very sort of confusing.
Right.
So
I'll walk through it. So first of all, I think there is a mistake on the graphics. We are not proposing to eliminate any parkland on the proposed plan. There is an error. We should not have been showing a concrete sidewalk on the median on the Riverside, the main line. But we are so there. I'll just orally tell you there is no removal of any parkland for any sidewalk or concrete in any way in this proposal. Regarding the parking on the east side of Riverside Drive, north of 165th Street, it's currently there's where you see the beige color, that's going to be the gravelly truffle paint that we use throughout the city.
Mhm.
That is for the pedestrian space. But just north of the crosswalk, we don't need it for pedestrians anymore. But unfortunately, there's a fire hydrant right there. So that's already no parking anytime at all times because there's a fire hydrant. And if you go past the 15 feet requirement of every fire hydrant, 15 feet from the hydrant, then the new lane that we're proposing does it actually, to make that lane, it actually would be where a parked car is. As you can see, there's a gentle taper at that location. So that's the reason for the removal of the parking there. I was trying to find every single parking spot that we could fit back into this, so that way the impact to the committee would be lessened. There is currently doctor authorized parking right there. We would relocate that just to the north, so that, yes, those doctors would have to walk an extra 100 feet or whatever it is, but we are intending to keep the authorized parking that does exist in this area. And I think there was one more question about why can't we do this simpler? The answer is that every simple solution came with a bigger problem. The flooding that you mentioned on the southeast corner, we will look at if there is something that we can fix, but a lot of the flooding issues that you see in the city are actually not the DOT, it's actually DEP, different agency altogether.
Right.
And so if there is something that is DOT's responsibility, we will fix it. But I'm skeptical that flooding exists because of DOT's, like, to fix it is a multi-million-dollar project, which this is not. So that would be another presentation at another time. But we will do everything we can.
Right, so that is my son, it is not a DOT issue. It is an issue for DEP to address.
If we're gonna lose this many parking spots, no offense, Julio, but I don't see why the doctor authorized spots get protected and not the public.
No,
Just saying.
I agree with you. I don't,
Okay.
I don't hardly agree with you. I just think that, there are some parking spots that are, you cannot park during rush hour. But those parking do provide overnight parking for members of the community. Which, will be, I think, a big problem for residents, and they cannot find those overnight parking, and somehow maybe looking at some of those things, we can, if we could restore some of those at night, will be helpful. I'm less concerned about doctors parking.
Yeah, and that's all seems very possible. If you don't need the doctor authorized parking, or you want to make it just from certain hours, I'm sure we can work with our authorized parking unit to find a solution.
On the doctor authorized parking, aren't there also many comfortable alternatives for physicians who make a nice living at Presbyterian and probably could afford to use the very large parking garage, which I understand isn't filled up?
Well, as I said, Jay, my interest is that, whatever parking we can preserve for community use, it really should take precedent. I'm not advocating that those spaces that are hospital or doctors parking take precedent. I'm looking out to ensure the parking that is afforded to the community, especially for overnight, remain.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, for DOT, and I know you know this from spending lots of time with us, but for community, it's the overnight, right? So if there's anywhere where we can get creative so these can still be available for the overnight, that's really the pain point, as you know.
And can I also make one final comment? I know this said scheduled to start in 2024, but we must also realize when we look at these projects that just south of this particular location, we have, probably 3 or 4 blocks that is no parking at all at the present time because of DOT construction. So it's difficult to also then have this project overlap with the other project, because it's going to create a lot more chaos.
I mean, if you want to delay the implementation of this project, I don't see that that's ever the way from my perspective, it's really hard to get a project into a schedule. So the fact that the project is into the schedule is gold. Obviously, if you disagree with it, then you want to delay it, knock yourself out. It's been delayed for 10 years. I don't know what another year is, but at the same time, DOT is already going to be working at the 2 other locations that UA highlighted early in the presentation. And for project efficiency, for environmental concerns, we don't want to travel to a location at different times when we could be there only once. There is an efficiency element of doing this project while we do the Henry Hudson Parkway ramps locations.
Okay.
Oh, Debbie, just real quick. Sorry, I just wanted to jump in because I saw that Bruce had asked a question, or a question was asked as far as the viaduct. Just real quick. work on the viaduct as of now, yes, has been extended, and the completion date is still to be determined. I understand that there is work going to the south of this proposed area. I'm going to reach out to our bridges division to see if they can get a firmer timeline, but I just wanted to ideally hope that one doesn't bleed into the other, but I just wanted to just advise that we'll have further conversations about the viaduct. I'll reach out to our bridges division to see exactly what they're thinking as far as new timeline. But I just wanted to put it out there, just for the content of the conversation. Sorry, Debbie.
And also, some intrepid viewers have noticed that we have a banned right turn that I would like to mention, because we seem to have we got so focused on the parking that we failed to mention it. The proposal also includes a right turn ban from the main line northbound to 165th. So traffic who wants to turn right should use the upper Riverside Drive. That is still permitted. But the main line, the proposal, we should have a little circle with a line through it. Yeah, forgot to mention that. Sorry about that. There was nothing mischievous about forgetting that.
Yeah, so
Exactly.
can I just say, we cannot have substantive comments in the chat. The chat, that doesn't work for open meetings. So Bruce, actually, I'm going to ask you to, if you want to just sort of, I know you've had some comments that I want to get captured on the record, but just if you want to say anything at this point.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I want to talk about the relationship to Riverside Drive, and then Jim wants another bite at the apple.
So I appreciate Jody's concern about the pedestrians coming down her block and so forth, but I wholeheartedly endorse Julio's perspective and my neighbors who complain to me vehemently about what's going on with the viaduct. Lyle, please get some kind of more concrete information, because it's just very frustrating that the woman at the communications office is not really forthcoming with any kind of concrete anything, and Valerie's doing her job, but she's not getting what she needs to inform people. If we're looking at another year or 18 months, that's bad. The other thing I want to say is you can make all the left-hand turns on this intersection that you want, but once you get onto 165, you're stuck because of the traffic jam at 165 in Fort Washington. I'm there every week for different reasons. I'm going tomorrow. I mean, it's crazy, other than on the weekends. But you can open up a lot of left-hand turns, but they're going to be stuck and backlogged anyway. So I don't know what, if anything, anybody's looking at Fort Washington between 165 and the Armory, but it's a nightmare with all the taxis and all the people coming and going into the hospital. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Okay. So, I mean, the viaduct project took out what, 150 spots? So
165.
So I think that sort of the idea that we can't handle this project until the viaduct is over might be a direction that we might want to consider. Because it seems, I mean, somehow people have found somewhere to go, and I don't even understand how that happens at that huge number, but it starts to put in perspective what we're talking about here. But it also says, like, to everybody's point, between the parking and just the mess that it is, I think it's fair to say we don't really have the appetite for this until that's done. And this idea, we really, really need from DOT more visibility than this continual thing that you're getting of, we haven't had any sense for timing of that project for about a year now. Like it's just gone silent and this isn't working. Jim?
I'm gonna stick specifically to the intersection we're talking about now. As I understand it, this work that you would like to do is mainly a safety improvement. So as far as I'm concerned, we don't delay safety improvements. We're not gonna say, I'm sorry, someone needed parking to someone who got run over because of a delay. So I'm totally opposed to that. And the other thing is, as you've indicated, and it's clear from the diagram I'm looking at, that you won't be able to make a right turn from the northbound main roadway. However, that means people going north need to be alerted south of there that if they want to make a right turn, they will have to get onto that, extra Riverside Drive thing, that other piece. Because otherwise they're gonna make.
turn here, right?
That's right, they can turn there, but the point is, they'd have to get onto there, otherwise because otherwise what people will do is they'll just make the right turn anyway, and that will sort of defeat all the safety engineering we're trying to do. People will follow the rules provided we don't get ridiculous. And so at the very least, we need to alert them. And I don't know exactly where you get onto that spur or whatever it is. I mean, as you all know, probably everyone in this room, I think we have 3 different Riverside Drives, just to make matters confusing. So, and especially for, people just new to the neighborhood, because what many people want to do is precisely make that right turn, because that's where they're going to turn to get to the hospital. And so we have to facilitate that for them with additional signing. Thank you.
That's a good point. And it's hard to see how you're loading on that much volume onto the little, whatever we call.
Yeah, this project will definitely come. I didn't make a presentation about it, but it will definitely come with the appropriate signage and diversion plan for that right turn. But the most immediate right turn option is actually at 161, which will bring traffic back down to the intersection of 158th and Riverside. And frankly, if I was a driver doing that, I would probably end up on Broadway, just going north on Broadway. A couple of lefts.
Maria Luna has patiently been waiting. Maria, do you want to go ahead? Just unmute, Maria.
Ain't working.
Can you try again to unmute? No, you got it. There you go.
Thank you. I agree with Bruce because I live on this, this area, and I walk that area. The congestion, you having the cross around here, right, for the pedestrian, all that area, and you're adding gravel to this area, right? So, but the people who are driving north, like I do all the time, how am I going to, which light I am going to see to turn right to take me all up to 165th Street? I don't see anything there. This situation with the Upper Drive, people going north, it's fine. And then what happened to the people going north also? On the middle, below this particular area, I don't know what you call it. You're extending that. Also, I need to protect the guy who sells the flowers there. He's been selling roses for the last 30 years, and he sent his older daughter to medical school just selling roses on that corner. So I need to protect that space, that area for him. Okay, so now around here is the problem that we have. Now, we all remember that Presbyterian, the Millstein is being fed by a large truck. I don't know, they don't do it during the day, but they do it at night, where they bring, Julio, help me. Is that fuel or some oxygen or something like that? Plus the people who are delivering things to the kitchen at the Millstein that also take one of the lanes for the traffic. So we are only going to be having like two lanes, one going up, but the other one is God only knows what is that going to end. My problem is going north and being on the police department, enforcement. This is one of the area that all these people are losing cars by vandalism. They put a special light. Where is that light going to be, situated for the protection of the people who are parking along this way? The resident, I'm talking about the resident, the traffic can go, whatever. But anyway, this particular area here is a complete mess. And it needs to be looked at, since you're going to be extending this area further, right into the pedestrian, almost to the pedestrian, the crossing area. So this thing had to be looked at. And I also agree with the people, we are fed up with the construction here with Viaduct. When is that going to end? We are just cannot continue then adding another project that is going to impact the people who are, living in our community, to make room for a few parking spaces. For God only, maybe the doctors and the nurses are going probably to take those spaces instead of using the parking. But anyway, around here is the concern that I have right now. The dog run we had to protect also. But anyway, so anyone can say anything about this particular situation. Turning from north to 165th Street, how is that going to work? Are there going to be lights? The direction, the light, the green, red, and yellow. What's going to happen on that area?
Right. So on the upper Riverside Drive,
yeah,
that one will be part of the signal. So it will definitely have a red, yellow, and a green, and it will be a part of the regular intersection functionality. Then the main line of Riverside Drive, we're proposing to ban the right turn. And so if you were driving north on Riverside Drive and you knew you needed to get over to the hospital, the proposed preferred route would be either to use the upper Riverside Drive or to use Broadway.
Let me stop you right there. The upper Riverside Drive comes from 158th Street on the upper drive. The people who are coming from the lower, the middle, come from downtown, come from around the other area. The mid Riverside Drive and the Riverside Drive West. So we cannot say that people have a choice of turning here. I'm talking about the people around here. Where are they going to come?
Are the people around here?
Around, you see my little arrow? The arrow, the blue thing that you have here. You have one going up north, up 165th. The second arrow here. Where are they going to be turning?
So
the ones that are coming from?
Right. So the diversion plan includes at 161 as you're driving north, like the previous intersection.
We have 161 around here.
Maria, sorry, I don't want the back and forth. Dan, is there anything you can show us? Because I'm having a hard time visualizing that we can see 161 where people are entering, because this one's a little hard to wrap our heads around. So
I don't have anything prepared, but I can share my screen that shows a map.
Okay, great. Thank you.
If I could say, that's 158th Street. That's where they would be able to come from.
So here's what we'll do. We'll go to, okay, so what you're looking at is, here's 165th. This is the intersection we're talking about, right?
Right.
On Riverside Drive main line, there are no previous intersections until, as you go south, until the one at 161st. First, I know you said it. There's Riverside Drive West, there's Riverside Drive, there's too many Riversides.
All right.
But at this intersection, you want to call it brings you back down to 158th, absolutely. But 158th is also south of here, so that's just as confusing. But at this intersection, whatever we want to call it, is the previous right turn option. So somebody in this neighborhood, I don't know how they got here, but if they wanted to go to the hospital, you turn right on this Riverside Drive, it will take you to 158th Street. And from there, you can either do a U-turn type turn onto
Oh.
Upper Riverside Drive, or frankly, if it was me, I'd probably end up just going down 158th and turning left on Broadway.
Sorry, that is a two-way street. That's what I live. I live right there where you have the arrow.
Yes.
Okay, so I know that area real well. Okay, so there is no way that people can come from downtown, turn around here, I'm sorry, but around there, 164th, go around the curve of where I live, go to 158 and go around on the Upper Drive. No good. There's no way
Right.
you can do that.
I totally agree with you. Somebody coming from downtown wouldn't do that either. They would turn right at 155th and come up this way.
Yeah.
But I thought you were asking about local community.
No, forget about Broadway. We're talking about Riverside. Riverside going north.
Maria, I can't.
I
Okay,
can, because here's, I'm
If you're
sorry,
not-
but I live here and I know what I'm talking about. I need protection
Maria,
for this area and want
Maria,
to
we're not
clarification.
having a back and forth with you and
I'm
Dan.
just pointing out to him that he doesn't, but David, I am pointing out the way the area, and if I can see on the map says 164, the little playground, you continue going up to 165th Street. That's the area that I'm concerned about.
So,
All
okay,
right.
I got
Then
it.
we go
Asked
up
and
there to
answered.
165th. Where are we turning to go to the hospital or to the Milton or whatever it is? That needs to be clarified. The upper drive and the middle drive.
Right?
Julio? And then
Yeah.
we're gonna, Bruce, and then Radia.
Thank you. I think that, I sort of visualize and understand what DOT is saying, but unfortunately, drivers are not gonna go north, then head back south, and then go to Broadway and the last thing I wanna see is people take the upper drive so that they can then turn on 165th Street to make that right turn. It puts that little Upper Riverside Drive is congested. There's a lot of people there and it creating really a worse situation in terms of safety. Now, I would like to ask on the map that you had where I assume that there's no concrete work. This is all painting that's done. Instead of creating this long island on 165th Street, is there any possibility that that instead of having that straightforward, like Long Island, that in fact, this could be redesigned that people who want to make that left turn on 165th Street will be able to do so before they get to the corner? And you won't have a continuous island, but you will still have the sort of medium in between so that, if you need to cross the street, you still have the medium in the center to be able to cross over to the west side of 165th Street. So I'm not sure if you understand. I'm not sure if you understand what I mean.
I understand. We explored that. Again, I didn't want to create challenges for the community. I wanted to create better pedestrian crossing here. We explored that. It didn't work with the angles in which vehicles are required to maneuver to make that movement. So the best we could do is to ban it.
Okay. Right. It's sort of feeling like that even more than the parking is, that's not a way to go. That's like a circuitous detour. And we're not going to send people into that 5-way, 6-way Edward Morgan intersection and tell them to finagle that, because that's already a hot mess. So I may be heading towards something that's not resolving on us tonight, but I feel like we could be at this for a long time. So Bruce and then Radia, and then I think we just need to, as a committee, sort of figure out, obviously we want, like we all do, we want the good stuff here, but there might be a couple of things that we're going to get hung on that we need to sort of more time on how we're going to get through them. Bruce?
Yeah, I just have a quick question. How many pedestrians actually come from north of 165 down to that intersection. If there's 35 cars, I think the psychiatric center is there. Is there a lot of foot traffic? That's my one question. The other thing is we spent 10 years trying to figure out how to deal with Edward Morgan Place and 158 to prevent the kind of congestion that we're talking about. And it seems to be working to kind of defer or discourage cars from whipping off Riverside Drive around our neighborhood, making a left up 165 to get to the bridge. So exactly to Debbie's point, the back and forth is not going to work. And I've been here for 23 years, and Maria Luna's been here for a few more years than me, and she knows it just as well, if not better. Thank you.
Radia? Thanks, Bruce.
Yes, I'll be brief. Just piggybacking off of what Maria said, I live in the neighborhood. I've lived here for 30 years. I live in River Terrace. I'm right in the mix with the construction and the noise and the no parking. And it has really come down to almost a quality of life type of situation at this point, where we can't have deliveries, we can't have visitors who have cars because they have no place to park. And then directing the traffic back to 158 and that Edward Morgan area, it would just be that would just add even more chaos into what already is chaos. So I just think maybe looking at this, seeing how we could work better, just to make everyone happy, because right now it's just very congested. It's very, we're really unhappy over here. I mean, the residents are not happy, they're frustrated. So just if we can find other alternatives, better ways of working together, that might be good. Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Okay.
Debbie, I'm sorry, I put it in the question. Is it possible? I mean, I do really feel that there needs to be some sort of safety measure there for people who want to cross out, especially you have so many people with dog run. Is it possible to have some sort of on-site meeting with DOT to go over this and see other things? Because I think that just painting things and making demarcation is not enough. There has to be some sort of additional sort of capital funding to make some other changes that will make this work. So is it possible to schedule something with DOT on site?
We could. We can talk about that offline, but yeah, we can have a site visit if need be on at this location.
Oh, this is like one of the harder things I think we've ever had. And yeah.
If I could comment on that as parliamentarian, this meeting on site would have to be a public meeting, at least insofar as the public, you're gonna have to record it and all that kind of stuff, but the entire community board committee should be aware of the meeting and able to attend, other members of the community board and members of the public, because we don't do things in secret.
Yeah, good point. Thank you.
Do we need a motion?
Well, let's figure out what that is, because so what I am hearing is we can't get to a resolution on this tonight. I guess, is this, Dan, if we need more time to kind of to work on whatever form it takes, another session at this meeting, some sort of public session, but that is on site, does that hold up the implementation of the other two sites there and the 2020 resolution we did?
No, the 2020 resolution sites are scheduled to move forward in 2024, regardless of what this intersection has. We would like to, the DOT would like to do it in concurrence with those sites, but it is not required. And we don't need a resolution tonight from you on this location. This location will remain as existing. until we can get something from you that says to move forward with this proposal. So
Okay.
that's the timeline is really now in your court.
Okay.
Maybe that may be a dangerous thing. I don't know.
So, okay, so noting that we're leaving aside the parking issue for now. We are really stuck on the solution. I understand why it's a solution but sort of kind of eliminating right turns on 165th from northbound isn't something we're going to get over right now. So what are the suggestions of formats that we could sort of come together again and try to work through that challenge a little bit? Like, what's a DOT, or Lyle, maybe you can address this, or Lyle and Dan, of like.
We can come back to you with a series of diagrams describing in a better way than what I did today, the various diversion requirements of that banned right turn. So we can make that and present it to you, or even just send it to you, whatever. But that ban is required for the project.
Jim?
I just have an additional suggestion to the process.
Yeah.
Because ideally, and maybe they can help us with this timing too, if we can come to a conclusion among ourselves as to what we want to do that sooner rather than later, because if we do it soon enough, obviously we don't want a process that's not going to work. But if we do it soon enough, then we will be able to approve it, and the work will also be able to be done in 2024. So that's suggestion to all of us, that we have to extend the process to figure out this
Right
turn issue.
Okay, so do we want to work out now? I mean, it just, we have a long night ahead of us. So I guess, do we want to come back to DOT about what we think makes the most sense in terms of doing something during the daytime on site and do it as a public meeting, and, that kind of thing, like next TNT meeting, like out there during the daytime or what have you? Do we want to try to do it again at another meeting? Just have a part 2 and invite DOT back? Do we want to take some time to think about it?
Well, what I would suggest is that we do both. And this may involve some more work from DOT and for the members of the committee. But if we could have a meeting at the site prior to our next committee meeting, then we will be in a better position to discuss the matter on our next committee meeting. So therefore, we should allocate time at our next committee meeting to revisit this. And the way we would do that is we would table this to our next committee meeting. And then ideally, next month, we will be in a position, having better understood the situation or resolved it better, to actually give DOT the go-ahead if we're ready for it. And then the other thing is, I understand it, and I have enough trouble walking around there. If in order to make this right turn that people might want to make on 165th Street, they have some complicated thing to do at, Edward Morgan Place, then we have signage that we can add. There are markings to the street. There's a particular kind of marking they use all the time called Pegatrack that shows a preferred lane. So you could actually mark this to right turn on 165th Street and people would know to follow that. So, there are things that we could do. But I agree that we have to understand it better, which will involve.
Okay, all right. I think, okay. Thank you, Jim, for thinking more clearly than I can. Dan and Lyle, what's the latest we could reso on this if we were to find a way to move forward and still get in for your timeline in 2024? Would that be November? Would that be December?
Oh no, it's in the spring. We came to you early because we knew it was a tough one.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so yeah, because I don't want to commit that we're going to do a public session and another one like all in a month. So I think I'm gonna leave it as thank you for the attendees and the committee members and former board members and current board members for cracking their heads on it and joining Dan, who's been cracking his head for 10 years. UA, thank you so much for the work you've done on this, and Lyle for keeping us all coordinated. And we will communicate a timing to just let us, give us a little more time with this one, because this is a tough pill.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, appreciate your time tonight. Lyle, you'll stay and again, thanks again, UA. Bye, Dan.
Having a good night.
Good night. Lyle, I'm gonna just ask you to go right into updating the committee, and we have people in the room as well as online that are very interested to hear about the safety improvements at Margaret Corbin Circle, which for the past, I guess, 2 years at least, but I'm thinking maybe, well, whatever, has just been at times a very, very tough drag racing spot.
Yeah, I'll try to do this quickly. I don't have any visual aids, unfortunately, with me, so I can talk through very quickly, ideally what the plan for the circle is. But yes, we have, ideally, DOT does have some pedestrian and traffic safety upgrades that will be coming to the circle in the near future. As Debbie mentioned, she and I spoke last week. I reached out to her last week to let her know, and she asked me to speak to the committee just to say a few words about what's to come. So, just as a brief overview, we've heard from elected officials and others in the neighborhood who have asked DOT to look at installing some new safety measures inside of the circle to try to mitigate the speeding and other reckless driver activity that takes place there. Briefly, I'll go over the new additions that we are going to install. The intent of the design is to improve safety and curtail speeding and other reckless driving behaviors, i.e. drifting, donuts, that sort of thing that you tend to see in the circle. The objective is accomplished by installing new pavement markings that refine the geometrics of the circle, as well as installing vertical traffic calming devices such as granite blocks and speed bumps. So basically, the way that the circle is laid out currently, the through lane, or at least the driving lane that's in the circle, is somewhat wide. Part of the plan is to install new lane markings within the circle, some lane markings that will make it a little bit tighter in that driving space, so that the option to either speed or do donuts in that area would be severely compromised. Design also does preserve MTA bus layover space around the circle, and also gives Parks Department vehicles access to the curb. The city bike station will remain in its current location, but there will be enhanced pedestrian spaces in the area. The parking space that's currently there will be marked out and will be used for buses, again, as a bus layover and for parks parking on both sides of the circle. So in total, 4 buses should be able to lay over in the circle and still accommodate parks parking in order to do their duties around the area. We're going to expand and add rubber speed bumps in the center of the circle and in the parking spaces in order to prevent high-speed driving and or drifting. Color surface treatment. So basically, when you go into, say, any of our plaza areas or see any of our curb extensions, the tan color that you normally see on the ground, we're going to be adding those in select locations around the circle, again, to increase pedestrian space and to narrow down the vehicular areas within the circle. And some granite blocks will be added as well. So some physical barriers will be in this circle, ideally to serve as both a protector for the bike lane that will be a little wider in the circle, as well as to serve as a barrier and deterrent for vehicles to also speed and do donuts. So ideally, the time frame for all of these improvements, plan ideally was to do this before the end of our installation season, which is ideally the end of October. We just more or less got official approval to move forward on this project not so long ago. So I'm not sure if we can do some or all of the improvements in the circle before the implementation season ends. If not, then we'll try our best to do what we can before the weather starts to turn, if the schedule allows, and then come back to do the rest in the spring, or we might do all of the improvements come springtime. But it is something that will be moving forward and will increase traffic and pedestrian safety in the circle. Like I said, as far as any particular timeframes, I'll get back to you. But ideally, that's pretty much the plan. So again, just some physical barriers, some speed bumps, rubberized speed bumps, and the granite blocks along your bike lane and pedestrian space, or for others to be able to walk about and cycle safely. Bus layover space for MTA buses, parking for the parks vehicles, and upgraded and enhanced lane markings within the circle, ideally to tighten and narrow the driving space within the circle, as well as have clear indicators for where pedestrians and drivers should be. So again, like I said, as information comes in as far as time frame, I'll be in touch, but ideally those are pretty much the plans that we have for the circle, hopefully if not this fall, in the spring.
Okay, so we do have October to work with,
Yeah.
presumably. So you're
Mhm.
saying you don't know if they're gonna be able to kick off before the weather goes against us.
Yeah, because we have a few other projects on their schedules. So if we can, get the ball rolling prior to the end of our installation season or before the weather turns, we'll try to, squeeze some of it in. If not, then the work should be done in the spring. And be, all of it should be done in the spring, ideally. So I just have to get clarification from colleagues, but that's pretty much the plan. It's all these things are going to happen. It's just a matter of time.
Okay, thank you. So I don't know if people saw, just while we have Lyle here, just a few other updates. So the Washington Bridge work that we resoed on, the add a bike lane and do the busway, they're sort of doing it in 2 phases, but the notice did just go out in the past, either Friday or, I think it was, saying that they're starting first on the bike lane side. I thought it was going to go the busway side first, but it looks like it's the bikeway. So Lyle, of course, keep us updated on that. I guess if I'm going to make the request now while I have you that somebody from the World of Viaduct Project comes to our next meeting, because this is getting old and I don't want to do it anymore. And then I guess my only thing on the safety stuff on the drag racing is thanks to DOT. I mean, there was quite an issue, I guess now going back 2 summers. And I know the council member's office was involved and the state senator's office was involved. And I'm sure Al Taylor's on the office is here tonight as well. And pretty much everybody, heard from residents and how crazy it was from a noise and safety and everything standpoint. And then it sort of resurged again. So we're pleased to hear that these steps are being taken. I will just say my evermore question that I want to put out here, because we've talked about it offline, is that we always hear about that DOT is trying to create a speed bump tool that could work on bus routes. And so at which point that somebody can talk to us about, like, how much of that are you doing and what does it take to get evaluated for that?
Okay.
If not for Fort Washington, but this comes up in a lot of our streets in CB12 that sort of have some of these issues. So just it's a both a specific and a general request is sort of like, is this already being considered for that? Has it been considered and it's not being forwarded? It still could happen. Like, what's the status of potentially that tool on this stretch?
For as far as the speed cushion on Fort Washington, we are taking a look at that stretch, ideally from 181st to the circle, just to see if one is doable or several have been put in. So that has to be evaluated. I'm not sure when the results would be available from the findings, but a request was put in order to look at that location. So that area should be evaluated, and we can get back to you with those results once determined. But that was a question that came up, so we're taking a look at that stretch on Fort Washington, ideally just south of the circle between 181st and 190th.
Okay, great. Let me just see. I think there might be a question. Give me a sec. Julio, I'm assuming that's an old hand, so I'm going to lower it. I'm sorry, Ira Gershenhorn, you are up. Thanks for your patience.
Yeah, all my questions or comments were about the intersection Riverside and 165th, so maybe they're not relevant anymore.
I am sorry, because it sounds like I did not see your hand up for that part. Yeah, let's offline together. And then to make sure that that stuff gets addressed. I apologize. Chris Whitaker. And Ira, would you mind putting your email or some contact info in the chat?
No, I'll do that. Sure.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I was going to say, if anyone has any additional questions about the previous presentation or this one, you can always reach out to me independent of this meeting, and we can have a further conversation, or I can pass on those comments and questions to my colleagues, to Dan anyway. So, I'll put my information in the chat, my email, so you can, you can send me any questions. And if anything, I think that's a good idea, Debbie. If there are other questions that either residents or community members do have, maybe if you want to just put those together and just send a list of questions that you have all together, I can pass those along to Dan anyway for their review. That helps.
Perfect. Appreciate it. Chris Whitaker, thanks for being here.
Hi, thanks so much. Hi, everybody. Hi, Lyle and Debbie. I just wanted to take a second and thank DOT for working on this specific drag racing issue. I live on Fort Washington Avenue, and this August, after a particularly rough night of drag racing, I started to basically start a little campaign to organize members of the community, and we're up to over 400 people who've signed up for our little campaign to basically come together and help collaborate with all of you on solutions to end some of this reckless driving in the community. So we're super excited to hear that DOT is working on this, and basically, we just want to know how we can be helpful and how we can continue to help you all break through log jams where there are political kinks in the system. So we hope to be in touch. And like Lyle said, we're really interested in seeing how mitigation strategies might extend eventually down Fort Washington Avenue and other spots in the community where this has become an issue. So I'll leave the link to our little campaign in the chat if anybody's interested. But we're super excited to see progress on this. So thank you to everyone who's been working on it.
All right, and then Chris, I'll get you connected with Lyle because it's probably on an ongoing basis since you're kind of in touch with the larger group. Probably good for you guys to know each other. So thanks for all your efforts. Okay, so
Sorry, I think Jamila had a question. I don't know if that was in relation to time frame for the circle. Jamila, I just want to make sure. I know she's there.
Yes, it was an old question. You explained the timeline. Thank you.
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure that I got your question if it was in relation to the circle. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
No problem. Sorry, Debbie.
no problem. Thank you, Lyle. Robert Sabara.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to address this issue. I had a question. I think this probably should be directed towards Lyle. Having an understanding of kind of what's been going on at Margaret Corbin Circle, I wanted to ask, for I guess the speed bumps and the barriers that are going to be put there. I just wanted to emphasize that how important those would be to, I guess, eliminate this type of activity, because having lane markings, I think frankly just won't be effective at all. I don't think it'll do anything. So raised structures, whether that's speed bumps or blocks or planters, whatever it may be, grooved pavement, I think that would be very effective, and I think we all look forward to that being implemented. Thanks.
Yeah, the hope is that, with some of the physical barriers in the circle, that, should also help to tighten up the space and cause more of a physical deterrent for drivers to do any sort of questionable or reckless activity. Again, if any of the treatments that we do install in this circle need to be tweaked or adjusted, this is an area that, we always normally do, can go back to, if something's not working, in order to see if there's anything else that we might be able to do. But, I think we have a good plan going forward. But again, we can always adjust it if necessary. So, and if you have any other, suggestions, for the circle or for the area of Fort Washington, along that stretch between 181st and 190th, again, I put my information in the chat. By all means, let me know. I can pass that information along to my colleagues.
Thank you so much, Lyle. I believe we have a revocable consent we need to do that. You guys, do you need to be here for that or no? Or you don't, we can just do our.
Wrapping up.
Okay. All right. Well, Lyle, of course, feel free to hang out with us, but if you need to go, I understand. And
wait, what did Chris say? Oh yeah, that would be helpful.
wait, I'm sorry, repeat that question.
I have this in.
All right, do we have Nancy Ibrahim here on the revocable consent? Okay, so I don't know if we had a miscommunication because it is on the agenda, so, but just let me make you aware of what it is, although it sounds like it might end up that we have to deal with it in executive. There is an application for a new revocable consent to construct, maintain, and use an accessible ramp with steps in front of the Church of Incarnation located at 1292 1294 St. Nicholas Avenue at the corner of 175th. It is possible, as I'm looking at it, that maybe they didn't have an intention of coming and presenting us and just submitted the materials. Jim, you have the probably longest history with revocable consents. Does that sometimes happen? Came from DOT.
Do we have a diagram of what they plan to do?
We do.
Well, again, I think normally, well, there are two issues. Number one, obviously, until we put in our consent, probably things can't move forward, and it may even be that there's some kind of.
There is some timing because there is a timing consideration because it's before our general meeting.
Right. So the issue, I think, is they want to do this thing, and it might be, well, let's go back at them. They're assuming that by sending, well, the stuff came from DOT. They're talking about.
Yes.
Right now, one would think that the church, which is probably, doing this work, would probably want to make a presentation to us, explaining to us what they want to do and why we should approve it. Now, on the other hand, it may be, it's because, if the diagram is sufficiently simple, we might be able to approve it just because again, the presumption is this ramp is to allow disabled people to get into the church. And ideally, we would like that to occur sooner than later. So I would suggest we look at this right now. If we see it, not non-objectionable. I don't believe that the church, although it has very interesting architecture, it actually has simulated fine buttresses. I don't believe it's landmarked or anything.
All right, so let's do that because I don't want it to get hung up and it's going to be a little challenging to do this in executive. But before I try to share my screen and we get to that, let me just say, because there's a few newer members of the committee and I found it a little confusing when I first joined, a revocable consent is for when there's an agreement between the city and an individual, an institution, in this case, I guess, a church, that allows that individual or institution to use the city's inalienable property. So we have seen this sort of thing in the past for like an accessible ramp that's obviously on the sidewalk. We had it with some of the either newer buildings that were associated with the medical center. I think, a while back, sometimes it had to do with, we had some that related to telecommunications equipment and lines. But again,
was just a trench in the ground.
And it was just a trench. So it's pretty, so if we can do this,
It's like an easement, sort of.
Kind of, yeah. That's how I understand it.
Right, because probably the ramp will be on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
right.
The only question we should have, and is how much does it impinge on the sidewalk? And does it affect the flow of pedestrian traffic? And I don't recall how wide the street is on that block.
Well, why don't
Mary,
I'm one of the people that's been fighting for a ramp because I can barely, that's my church. I'm
Okay.
a lector in that church and I have to wait for somebody to carry this up the steps because I can't.
Uh-huh.
So.
And would the street be passable,
Yes.
comfortably
Yes.
passable with the ramp?
It's very wide, yes.
All right.
Yeah.
So I think that would cover most of the objections people might have.
Well, I think the first step is for Debbie to share her screen so we can see what we're talking about, and then we can answer Jay's question.
Right.
And then you're actually in a position to advocate for this thing.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's not like.
And me and many other people who are disabled who try to get into church. They
Right.
can't go to church.
Right.
This is,
But they're not here right now, you won't.
right, but
And you know.
I certainly am representing them.
Right, and you know, that'll make up for.
And myself.
Okay.
Have not sent someone.
All right. Again, let's try to keep this efficient in the interest of time. Jasmine, we are getting to you. I'm gonna try to move this quickly. I will say my bias is just to go with it. I don't stand in the way of revocable consents. Is there somebody? Yeah, hold on.
Plus sign up.
I know, it's just that then at a certain point, so I guess I would encourage members of the committee, if you want to go up and sort of look at the layout, and Jim, maybe if you can just sort of point and narrate, and then I will.
I'm still trying to find the ramp. This?
Oh,
It's in red.
hi, Leo Jimenez.
I'm sorry, it's in red, so this would be the ramp.
Hey, Debbie. Hi, Cody.
How you doing?
No, this is
Doing well.
Yeah, there's
Um,
nothing up here.
the main entrance.
Well, they said it's in red, so it's this thing, apparently you go.
So we're
around
going
like
to the
this,
side.
like that, and we're going to the side, right? So the issue is how wide the side street is. But.
And that side is very wide also.
The side street is wide.
Right, the sidewalk that's on the side street.
Right,
Which is 175th Street
That's wide.
is very wide also.
Okay, so I mean, that could be a problem, and they're not.
Just for people that might have a hard time hearing, we're just trying to just confirm that there is appropriate sidewalk remaining, to move
Yes, yes.
around, which I think has to meet the specifications of ADA on
Yeah,
the sidewalk passing. So I'm not really worried about it because it's,
Let me
Yeah.
see this photograph. Or this possible.
Okay.
Why think you click on it?
Hey,
So-
Debbie, I may. Second.
Can you go to the third slide?
what's that? Can you,
So you can see
I
the
wish you
side.
could drive right now. I'm sorry, but I didn't catch what you said.
Well, try to go.
Only if you can see the other diagram, especially the one with the photograph.
Okay, so I'm just gonna start scrolling down slowly because there's I don't want to make it
Oh,
even
yeah,
bigger.
That's a nice one.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's gonna be over here, stop going, it's gonna be right over here,
Right, side entrance is right up here.
right there.
Yes. So one
Okay.
thing between St. Nick and Audubon, they have a curb extension. So there's more than enough space if they do
Right.
if we do for ADA ramp. I think this is great for the church. I went to school there in my youth. I know many patrons that attend the church that are handicapped and need accessibility to get in there. I think that as a committee and as a community, we should be pushing for these kind of initiatives.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
for that, I'm all for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, most of the pedestrian traffic, other than the people in wheelchairs, will be going in the main entrance, and there won't even be any congestion over there.
Right.
So I
No, we
suggest,
should, this is glorious in terms of sidewalk width. So,
I move that we approve this.
okay,
Our second.
all in favor? Anyone opposed? All right.
I think Mary should abstain.
Thank you. Thank you for
I think
moving
a
that.
member of the public is in favor also.
Okay, thank you.
We all got a ticket to heaven now.
He did.
Look at the.
Thank you. Let me just make sure we don't have anything else going on.
See it.
Oh, there.
Isn't there?
All right, Indiana, even though that's, in the chat, I'm taking that as in favor of this consent.
It's waning.
So that's awesome. Okay. Jim, I hate to put you on the spot, but can you write the reso? If I send you the stuff
Send me the
and I
stuff.
send you the last one that we did,
Yes.
I actually pulled it out before I got here. Do you still have that on your computer? Cause I think you drafted the last one, or should I send it to you?
Send it to me just.
Okay. All right, thanks for moving that along.
You right there is.
Okay, so, let me just get unshared, and Jasmine, I'm gonna have you get started in just a sec. Let me just get you promoted.
We're now doing capital expenses.
No, we had, so I'm sorry, this is my night of apologies to people. So we had a little miscue because we did have one co-naming application.
On what?
One co-naming application that came in. And I thought it was going to be on the agenda, but there's a little complexity to it. And Jasmine, I have to say, we may need to move you to April, but I didn't want to lose the opportunity for you to briefly speak to the committee. And then what I'm going to ask you to do is summarize for the committee what the co-naming is about, but understand that because this isn't somebody direct, it doesn't fit into our guidelines very neatly in terms of ties to the community. We may want to adjourn it for more full consideration to our other opportunity. Well, let's just see. So, but I did want you to just be able to present it because it's a lot of signatures and all of that. And I didn't want to not have an opportunity to speak about it. So this is Jasmine Coles. One sec. Do we still have? Sorry, I keep trying to get you promoted and I'm having a hard time. Right, does anybody, I don't feel like this is a tech issue, but I keep going next to our Jasmine's name. I'm saying promote to panelist.
You know what, that may happen.
Oh, there she goes. Oh, no, she didn't.
Is he planning to make, is he gonna show us slides or something?
I don't know. All right, Jasmine, I don't know what the problem is. Are you, but you should be able to unmute and speak to us. So if it's possible for you to just give a couple minutes, 2-3 minutes, summary.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. So I'm not Jasmine Coles. My name is Ashley Davis. I'm here on behalf of Jasmine Coles. She was having issues with technology. I'm not sure. But briefly, the code naming for the street is in honor of Dominique Alexander. He was found in Fort Tryon Park. And the police ruled his death as a suicide, but the family feels that there were other things at play. But the case is closed, and to honor his memory and his legacy, would like to co-name the street in the neighborhood.
Which street?
Can you describe which street? Was it Arden?
That sounds familiar. Hold on one second, I'm sorry. I don't know the exact street. Whatever Jasmine put on the application, that's the street name. I don't have that information.
Okay, so, okay. So, and Jasmine did submit the application.
Yes.
There's very specific guidelines that correspond to opportunities for co-naming.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them have to do with tying the person to, in this case, CB12. And looking for at least 10 years of like community service, you know, through a nonprofit, through individual action, etc. And so like he, I think, grew up in the Bronx. I think he had I think it said there was a relationship, maybe some ties to Harlem, and maybe through a congregation that he was very involved in or something like that.
Yes.
So I would say I am going to adjourn this item because the way it came in, we don't really have him tied to Arden Street.
Okay.
He wasn't sort of directly active in CB12, but I understand reading through, and I might suggest just on a personal basis, having read about him, he was a really, I mean, every human is valuable, but he sounded like it's a genuine loss. But I might say that honoring him where he died is maybe not as like much about his life as, you know, like it, I don't know. It sort of makes me sad that this was his only tie was the fact that he was found here. I'd also clarified that it was the medical examiner who made a determination. I know that our district manager has reached out to the precinct because we also have some limitations if something's open, but I think it's closed, etc. So I think probably what might be the best thing is if I'll tell our office to get Jasmine and I connected directly to figure out if the best next step is for her to come back at our next opportunity to consider co-namings, which will be in April. Again, they're timed twice a year because that corresponds with when the city council will vote on them. So therefore they vote in like, call it December and June, I think. Whether that's the best thing or maybe to submit this through his home community in the Bronx or some such. But I do appreciate that you guys took the time. It was a shocking loss in this community, and everybody, particularly those of us that live anywhere in the vicinity of that park, were so sad and affected by this. And I appreciate your and Ms. Cole's work to try to hold him in memory for all of us. So I really appreciate that, and apologies if you could pass to Ms. Coles for her difficulties tonight getting on. I hope that didn't have to do with our technical and my delay. But do know I do want to connect with Ms. Coles and try to figure out what the best path for this is.
Okay, thank you so much. I will relay all this information to her. Thank you for giving me time to speak.
And one of our committee members, Jay Mazer, would like to add something. If you could.
Just wanted to say about the question about people aren't sure whether or not it's a suicide. Based on the history of bodies being found in Fort Tryon Park, I think all deaths in Fort Tryon Park are, to my mind, suspicious, because it's a park you can drive through. It's an ideal location to dump bodies. And in the crack wars, a huge number of bodies were dumped in Fort Tryon Park for that reason. So I just wanted to say I share your suspicions automatically.
I appreciate that.
All right. Well, thank you for hanging in with us. I know it's gotten late, but it was nice to meet you, Ashley.
Thank you. Y'all have a good night.
All right. Bye-bye. Oof. Okay. with that, we are gonna move to, our capital and expense budget. So I'll just need a moment to pull up, to pull it up on the screen. You know, we've kind of rolled forward with the same, the shared document that we've used from year to year. So Leo, I may ask you to also open the Google Doc. But sorry, it's just, did I circulate it to the committee for last month when we just kind of did a brief overview? Yeah. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you hanging in tonight.
Thanks for coming over.
All right. So I'm gonna change this to 23. Whoops, sorry. I know I haven't shared yet. And Leo, if I could, yeah, if are you able to get in there and then add a column for both James Bosley and for Jody Hirson, so it's Hirson.
Yeah, I'm looking for it now. I should be able to.
Yeah, do you need me to let me see if I can reshare it.
If you could forward it again, that would be great. While I look.
Send them something else that I didn't get.
Oh, I did it for last month, but I'm gonna pull it up on the screen. Sorry, hopefully it just went out to you one more time, just the link.
Okay.
But I'll share screen and then it's called TNT District Needs Worksheet. But for reasons I can't recall, I did it in Word, not Excel. So if you're looking in Sheets, it's not there.
I didn't get that.
When we voted last year on Zoom, you did it on a spreadsheet, because you had all that trouble.
Okay.
You're gonna vote in person here.
Okay, so, but wait, we have time. We're not doing anything yet. So if you look at the screen, hopefully then it'll start to look familiar. And so first we have capital requests first. And just as a reminder, and then we'll talk about whether we're adding anything. We have ADA compliance list. I think I've updated that so that it reflects the ones that have been completed, but sorry, we're just doing our committee worksheet. We're not doing the we're just working our committee
These
worksheet.
papers have the committee.
Oh, they did?
Also.
That's from last year. The paper is from last year.
Right, but we haven't done it yet this year.
Right, we're doing.
Yeah, so this is what, okay. So the capital ones, again, if somebody, is there somebody who can scan the list of the accessible stations just to make sure that I haven't included one that's already underway? I think I've edited it. We have now this one's tricky because we have analyzed Riverside Drive upper roadway between 158th and 165th and implement any recommended changes to improve safety and flow of traffic. I think we're just going to leave that, but I don't know if tonight makes it any more complicated. Implement proposed changes on Riverside Drive north of 165th South. Okay, so that they've already announced, so that's coming off because that's happening. So I'm just gonna
as fast as I can.
Do you want to make that continuing support?
No, it's a project. They said they're implementing it in 24, so I don't, it's just confusing to have it there. I mean, they've just given us a date where that's going forward, so. And then we had some station rehabilitation. So again, at this time, we have, that is the capital projects. Now, the analyze the roadway is actually, the way it's described, 158 to 165th, that's not the capital project, really. The capital project would be if any of the changes were capital projects. So I don't know if we should move that to expense or just leave it because we've always had it there and nobody seems to have said anything. And then as an overview, the only thing we had on the expense side was increased funding for, on the expense side for some of the stations, maintenance, repairs, cleaning. This is an interesting one because the MTA has started an initiative to put like as much work as you could do in a weekend into some stations, to repainting, cleaning, doing some of these things that we're talking about. Announced it for a couple of our stations and then said it got delayed. So I think that one should stay there. That's a good one. And I feel like as an evergreen item, I think Mary introduced this one a few years ago, if memory serves. Then what Bruce highlighted tonight, traffic study for 165th to 170th. And then again, which is sort of an evergreen issue, most definitely at 207th Street, which I do want to keep there because even though I think it's really probably more of a 25 and onward when we have all those new buildings open and it's really going to need to work, but I don't think we should ever take that one off because it's always, that is a very rough spot. So, in our last month, when we sort of pre-spoke about it, I have two notes that I took. I don't know if other people took any about a survey, like some sort of survey for this whole leaks thing at subway stations. But then we were starting to back off thinking a lot of times that doesn't yield something until you drill in and open something and it starts raining on you. And I also wrote down raised crosswalks because I think those do cost money.
The raised crossing.
Right, what we couldn't get at 158 because of the catch basins.
down
So I guess the question is, do we want to add those raised crosswalks in more locations, not having a specific one in mind, but they really are a great tool and a new tool? Or is that too amorphous? Yeah, is that too amorphous if we're not talking about a specific
What is
location?
a raised crosswalk?
I don't know if you've been on Fort Washington and 181st Street. There was one on the west side of Fort Washington between 181 south side and north side is now a raised crosswalk. So it makes it safer for pedestrians because you have more visibility from the cars have more visibility of you and you're just raised a little bit. And it's their newest safety tool but it's getting rolled out pretty slowly. So if we can think of one or two locations, I think that's a good ask.
So there is one there?
There is one there. They went ahead and identified it because it was a dangerous intersection. And as a driver, it felt very dangerous.
A little bit high.
But
And it's okay for a bus lane.
Yes.
So I guess if we have any locations that we could think of, that might be something to do. We talked about, I know this is more for Steve's committee, but do we want to send something out to Steve's committee? Do we want to incorporate one to look into a catch basin at 158th and upper roadway of Riverside, which is why we couldn't get a raised crosswalk there. because there's no catch basin and that's a downward slope. So do we want to like add that here, but knowing that it's going to go under because it's a DEP item? Jody, help.
Well, catch basins, they're the, I mean, because Upper Riverside Drive has a lot of drainage.
Right.
And I don't know what
It's the rain in the ground that the water goes in.
yeah, we have like 7 or 8 of them. What we've been trying to do is get them unclogged because they're just packed with dirt and asphalt and all kinds of things that prevent the water from going in. But we have a lot of those on Upper Riverside Drive. I just don't think that we have any catch basins when you get down to 158. Bruce, what are your thoughts on this? Because when you get down to the actual intersection, there's where I don't think that there's any real.
Right, but they're saying if you raise the crosswalk, then they're saying they can't put a raised crosswalk there because there's no catch basin, so they would have a flooding.
There has
They'd
to be
flood.
a catch basin uphill from where you put the raised crosswalk, otherwise you're gonna get a pond.
Which there is. I mean, there's a.
Directly right where you're gonna put it, not way
Well,
up.
clearly it's not where they need it because it's not an
Yeah, so
option.
so someone like me shouldn't be making that determination. But my thought is that we should still think about that though, Debbie, because I do believe that if we were to have a raised crosswalk, because this is a very long pedestrian crossing walk at 158, where we're talking about possibly putting a raised crosswalk. And if we were to put that raised crosswalk in, because it also sits on a hill, I believe that it would help people that are handicapped also, because by raising it up just a little bit to meet the sidewalk as it moves up, I do believe it would make it easier for people, walkers, wheelchairs, et cetera, that, would just make it enhance their ability to cruise along that stretch that's already there.
Maria, what do you think? That's your corner. What do you think if there was a raised crosswalk? Because we got the curb cut in.
We've already asked DOT for this. Like the idea that intersection is harrowing. It's the perfect candidate for a raised crosswalk. We determined that, we covered that at our walkthrough. So what I've done is I put here catch basin at West 158th and Riverside to allow for a raised crosswalk. And I guess I can put on north side of West 158th. I mean, we can tighten the wording,
right?
But then that one can be shared DOT, DEP, and I need to make Steve aware of that.
But they just finished doing something there that it's unacceptable, because I think the problem is larger now than before. So I just don't know how the catch basin. There is a problem with the catch basin on Riverside Drive, right in front of the buildings 820, 821, and 819, those brownstone, that is supposed to be a catch basin also there. So I will hate to add something that is just really, it's not gonna work. I mean, they're not gonna be able to do it. On 158th Street, on the north side of 158th Street. Bruce, is right by the across from the beginning of the embankment, right?
Yeah, I got to go take a look. I don't know.
Yeah, if you take a look at, they just completed doing something there. The raised crosswalk, and it's really worse than it was before. So I just don't know if that's going to be they can improve that they can, they can do something there, but I'm not an engineer, so I just don't know how to explain it.
But Bruce, can you hold on to that? Because there is something that doesn't have to do with what we're doing now, but Jody also mentioned that there's whatever with the curb cuts and stuff like that they started to do, like something's not complete.
Okay. I'll look into it.
And thank you, because I know Maria's raised it, Jody's raised it. So can you just make sure that we capture what that is so we can get to DOT on it? But that's not
As a matter of fact, I was going to take some pictures and send that into to you, and I really forgot.
Hi,
Right.
Captain.
on that particular area.
No, and I did get the picture, but I think that there've been changes since the pictures, so I totally appreciate it, but I want to keep focused on this issue, but I also, yeah, so if you can be our
Debbie,
partner.
my problem is that I don't know if they did anything on the cash basin,
No,
as
they
just
did.
only on the crosswalk.
It's a capital project, so again, we requested a raised crosswalk as a solution to a horrible problem, and they said we can't do it because of a DEP issue. So, all right, anything else on the capital side?
Well, I have two comments. One of
Okay.
them is, and maybe we have to find out what this thing that Maria says they just installed is. Because maybe they even put in.
Curb cuts.
A curb
Curb
cut?
cuts.
Okay.
I didn't hear.
Curb cuts.
They installed a curb cut.
Yeah, curb cuts,
Curb cut.
but they don't carry like all the way through. Well, no, I don't want to go into what the issue is now, but
That's beside the point.
yeah.
The point is that, I think as step one, because we know where we would like the raised crosswalk to be, right? Yes, we made a request
Yes.
for where we want it to be.
Yes,
Just uphill of there, they have to put in a catch basin.
yes,
So we should specifically identify where we need this catch basin. And we, and as you pointed out, Steve's committee should jointly request this.
right,
catch
that's
basin.
there.
The catch basin.
That, I put it there.
Good.
Okay.
But there's no point in requesting the crosswalk until the catch basin is in, because they're just gonna turn it down again. See?
May I add something? When there is, rain and, flows, the subway station, the 157th Street
Yeah.
going
Yeah, I know.
downtown.
Yeah, I know.
You need rubber boots to enter or exit that particular station. Though maybe something could be done. Maybe we can request and
Yes,
So,
actually, Maria, I thought we always had that because we've been after them after every weather event on 157th, but I'm not seeing it here on my spreadsheet, but I could swear we've always had that.
well, and last Friday when big water, but it just happened again. So I just don't know, what type of work they have done.
You know what I'm realizing? It's here on the expense side, but maybe we should. But it was on the expense side as a repair. So let me also, Leo, were you able to get into it? Can you add, what would be the language for the capital project to address the 157th Street one station, like lack of, what's the word? It's like lack of so where you're seeing it, that's the expense side. So to move it up, to copy it and then make it, wording it right for it to be the capital, on the capital side, which is just scrolling up.
So we're moving into capital.
Well, do we keep them in both places or should we just move it?
No,
Does it feel like capital?
It's either one or the other.
Okay, so let's move it to capital because it's
Right.
hard to see how that's getting done through the expense budget and it's not doing anything for us there. Sorry, Leo.
Why
Just
is
take
not-
out the word repairs.
On these sheets we have, it's under capital.
Oh, really? So maybe we made that correction after we did these. Thank you. That's an eagle eye.
Second item.
It is under capital actually.
Oh. Okay, so yeah, if you can just move it up on our, it's already, wait, did I misread my own? Oh, it's on the second part at the end. Okay. All right.
Just
Sorry.
Take out the
My
word
fault.
repairs.
Oh, yeah.
Sustain-
It's just, what would be the better word?
Work.
Sustainability improvement improvement or something like what? not-
Upgrades.
Upgrade, there you
Upgrades.
go.
Upgrade.
Leo,
I love
that's why you get the big bucks, Leo.
exactly. Thank you. Excellent catch, Mary. Thank you, Leo. Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, everybody. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that one we've like ranked pretty highly too, because it's so crazy.
So
We
it's
didn't bring the board with us last time. We ranked it number 2, right? Board ranked it number 15.
Right, so not bad.
For our committee, that's pretty good for us. We don't tend to break into the top. So I'll try to send it over, yeah, this year in a way that makes it pop more. Okay. Is there anything else we want to add? So really the only thing we've added so far is the catch basin. And it's a CATCH, not a CACHE, right? Basin. Okay. Thank you. Check.
For that intersection, do we want to look at a study of the turning signals? Traffic turning signals?
I mean, they've said they're always looking at that one. I mean, they've told us verbally, like, yeah, we'll come back out when the Riverside, I said when the Riverside Viaduct was finished and we could watch actual traffic patterns, but of course it'll never be finished. So that's a problem. But so let's just leave it for the 2024, because it sounds like, I mean, they've never given us pushback or like, unless you get money put in this, I think, and since it is in the future, but then let's never lose the thread on it, because God willing, by next year, this time.
Okay.
You're talking about 2025, because we are working on 2024 now.
Yeah. Okay, so going. All right, so we can move to wait, Leo, what's Bonilla?
Daniel Benitez, is he still on our committee?
No. Okay, so I am the only one with a computer, so I think I need to give people a few minutes.
Did you make this print a list for us?
That's what I was trying to figure out before, is because this is their computer, yeah.
Well, you're on their Wi-Fi network.
Would you like me to take off, erase everybody's vote from last year so it could be a blank slate?
Oh, yeah, thank you.
We need to do our own rating, how we don't do that.
Yeah, this may work. All right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3. So 6 in the room. I hear a printer.
Hey.
Excellent. Okay, so people are gonna do a ranking from your first choice to your last choice, but you do capital separately from expense. Bruce, do you have an ability to print out? Well, actually, is Bruce allowed to vote on this?
No,
No?
unless he has a disability format,
Okay. All right.
nor can Leo.
Ugh.
Right, Jim?
What?
You gotta be.
Bruce, can Bruce and Leo do rankings or no?
Yes,
They can do.
They can?
rankings? I thought they couldn't vote.
no, they can vote, but they're not part of the quorum to have a meeting.
What I understood and was told was the opposite.
Well, who told you? It wasn't me.
I gotta tell you, as many times as you explain this stuff, like I do not get it. 'Cause
Because we're supposed to be even listing in the minutes who's in person and who's on Zoom of the committee
Right.
members.
So if, because Leo and Bruce don't have a disability form in.
No, you're mixing things up. Okay.
I was told that unless
Let
I
me explain.
form in that
Yeah.
if I'm home on Zoom, I can vote because I have a disability.
No, no. Again, let me explain it. There were two different issues, okay? Three different. In order for a meeting to occur, there has to be a quorum of committee members in a room somewhere.
Right, we got that.
I understand that, that's step one. Anyone, and you don't need a disability, in the resolution we passed, okay? There's a list of a whole bunch of things that allow you to attend the meeting remotely. And if you have any of the, so for example, if Bruce is staying home because he feels like staying home, then he can't vote. If Bruce is staying home because he's sick or something else on that list, then he can vote.
Right.
Right.
Right, but we were saying if they just couldn't
just
get here
home.
between a work event and being here in the room, then they can't rank, can they?
Correct. It's like that. I already said that. If they're staying home because they feel like staying home and they're not, the reason they're staying home is not on any of the criterion in the resolution. Like you're sick, you have to take care of your mother, someone died, whatever, then you can vote. If you're just staying home because you're staying home or you couldn't make it or whatever, and it's not on the list, then you can't vote.
Right, so you were presuming when we asked you the question, the opposite of what we thought you were
Yeah,
presuming.
these are not correct.
What's that? No, now he's saying that Leo and Bruce cannot rank tonight if, to the extent that they're,
These are wrong. Only the first one is correct.
oh, they,
We don't have the.
Oh. sorry, can you, oh, shit. Okay, so we need page 2 and 3 all printed out again.
The expense chart.
That's weird. I must have like hit,
Three on the capital, right?
I must have hit print like too fast when Leo was getting it all done. Sorry.
Pages that have numbers on them or number.
Apologies.
Memory, but before my sign is just, even like the way books, man. Oh. Sorry, it's been my best. My best anyway. So the third page is the expense. Wait, did I read it? It's the expense at the bottom of the second page.
It's what comes after. Sorry.
Am I supposed, did I get 2 pages or 3?
It's third.
Your first page was fine,
Oh,
It's more of the capital ones.
for reasons I don't understand, but
So page 1 and 2 are the
capital, yes, exactly.
Page 3 are the expense.
So in order to vote from home, you have to have disability, illness, caregiving responsibilities, or any other significant or unexpected factor or event which precludes members physically attending each meeting. And the list includes all of the excuses for not attending, excused absences. They will let you vote from home at all, also.
Right.
Now, the disability thing's another thing. If you have one of these official disabilities, then even though you're home, you do count as the quorum. That's the
Right.
add.
Right.
Right.
Are we voting now? Speakers started voting yet?
Yeah, you just.
Well, you just do your ranking and then I need a beat and then we'll read out and hopefully Leo. And one being the most important, and then again,
Wait a second, the first item and your capital.
Maybe since I can't vote on the needs, I can take the notes. So I can once you guys read them out, I can do it on my end and rank them.
thank you. I think your brain might be less fried than mine in this moment, so I do appreciate that.
I think you're doing a good job.
I just have to say, I just started a new job and I'm really like, I'm just overtired and overstimulated.
Hasn't this already been accomplished?
Oh. That would be the A.
Yeah.
Mine has numbers on it.
Those were the old copies. I printed out a replacement, page 2 and 3.
Oh,
Stairways not open.
No. Stairway is no being raised, but where the work has been done.
None of the stairways not open.
You know, there's been one.
So they gotta finish fast. That's, parcel.
I'd just like to say, as I think the lone member of the inward end of the business is that I want to see some love for the uptown issues. I think we spend a lot of time discussing, lower part of the district, but I want to just hope that we have some love for.
Do you have any specific issue you want to add to the list?
I don't have any, no, I don't have any issues I want to add. Just as I'm trying to do a ranking.
Right, but the point is that you have to find us an issue up there and then we'll be happy to put it on the list.
Yes, I know.
Okay,
Yeah.
and we love Inwood.
Yes.
We even love most of the people who live there. This is my unfavorite part of the whole community board experience. Oh,
Yeah, it's hard. It's just hard.
And that
Well, because they're all
ranking thing is
important,
even
right?
crazier.
Yeah, and then I always find in our committee, I know I belabor this point, but like the MTA capital budget is such like a big, like, community board doesn't have any impact, even when you roll it up on the city level. Like that's, I mean, it's an independent authority, and for stuff like that, I just feel like it's almost like wasting our vote. But on the other hand, these are the big capital things that matter. So I don't know how to resolve that, in a way, but in fact, I just did it. I split the baby. I was like, well, I'm not really gonna rank.
Wait a minute, so what you're saying is that because there's just so much.
It's on a city agency. It's on, and again, their capital budgets are like massive,
Well, there's always been
50
a
billion
debate.
at a time, 75 billion, 5 years out, 10 years out. It's like, it's not, they're not, this isn't going to them.
Yeah.
It
Like it
means that
goes
we
to-
do, it means that the community board people does the work and other gets the credit. That's what it is.
Yeah, yeah, true. But so it's like, so to me, like, yeah, just personally, like something like the 157th Street issue is like, that's a true local, like, okay. You know, it's a different flavor than just saying like, make the system more accessible. Like MTA does prioritize accessibility over the past few capital plans. And that has overtaken rehabilitation of stations because they're doing the accessibilities and that's how they're backdooring the
Okay, so you're
rehabilitation. So
saying
it's like,
you're actually putting that at a low.
I'm putting that lower
So
just
what if I
because
wanna
I feel like
change
157th is like a different flavor, but again, I don't feel like there's any wrong answer there. I'm just saying, it's not that I feel less about ADA compliant, you know, but I'm just saying for this exercise, it has less
Well, now that you're
meaning.
telling me that, though, maybe can I just cross it out?
Do what you want, because we're not, and then
You're eventually gonna read the numbers,
Leo's
and then
is
they
waiting
go
for
on
us.
the list. There are those who feel we shouldn't rate the MTA at all because it's not a city agency and they're not required to listen, but we've traditionally done so.
Yeah,
But,
no, it makes sense. I get it.
yeah,
So now what do we do with this?
Okay, we're
read the
gonna
numbers.
we're gonna
Read the numbers when the time comes.
and Leo Jimenez is gonna take it down and then we'll get a tally of what as a committee we're sending up and in what order. I mean, we're sending it all up.
Oh, look at that. The owl. The owl. Yeah.
Funny, I was looking in my head.
Now I'm talking over here and see it points, it should be pointing at you. There we go. No, I don't know.
Okay, are people ready or does anybody need another minute or two?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Do we have to sign these?
No.
No, because you're just gonna read your
Okay,
numbers aloud.
and just, again, for the two of you, because I can't remember if you've been through this cycle. There's one additional required meeting of all of us, which is the big ranking. So each committee submits their respective rankings. Then these kind of things get printed out and you literally have to rank like 100 million projects. It's really, really painful. And that is a big public meeting, but I know I went my first few years and I was kind of not clear that that's a requirement. I mean, that's one of the fundamental things we do as a community board because each of us then gets boiled up and that creates, and all the community boards roll up together and that becomes a request. You know, ultimately, when you cascade it all up, a request relative to the city budget.
So with that in mind, so if I'm coming to the big meeting and I've never done this before, how do I prepare for that? Because do I have a?
They're gonna send you all this stuff.
Like a month in advance,
Right.
hopefully.
And there's no,
Days in advance, you can fill it out in advance and just copy it.
Okay, so I
Right.
can sit
but
down
it
on
takes
my own
hours,
and,
I
yeah,
think, like
yeah.
when you, because then you're like,
It's neat,
I
but it takes
missed
a long time.
31.
Exactly.
And then you're like,
Exactly.
wait, I'll just -1 out of each one and then you have a heart attack and then you cry and then you start again when you can get the will to live and that's how it
There
goes.
are other community boards who do it in an entirely different way. They have a committee that takes the rankings from, it's called the ranking committee or something stupid like that. They take the rankings from all the regular committees and they produce what they think should be the ranking.
Right.
This
So they-
committee does.
Yeah,
So
I think
you
we
have
should do
to
that. So the
sit-
common ranking is not 150 things, it's something more manageable, 50 things or
Well, no,
whatever.
it may be fewer things. That's one of our, we have too many things also, but No, you would get a list that was already done for you, and then you could move, the group could move a couple of things around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
All right.
they might decide that, you know,
All right, guys, it's 10 to 10, so, sorry, Jim, do you want to go first? Just we'll start with
Okay.
experience. Leo, are you ready?
We're ready.
okay, I'm doing the capital requests first in the order on the page. 1, 3, 2. The capital.
But the capital continues on page 2, my dear.
Yeah.
Did you think those were expenses?
Oh,
Sorry, I didn't have page.
I'm gonna do Emily Latella. Never mind.
Never mind. Okay, I'm gonna do mine, I think.
I'm ready.
So
So these are the expenses?
the expenses are no, this was, because this was saying that's introducing expense, and expense are
Rehabilitate the 181st Street Station to be at the top.
is this. These are the expense ones. Sorry, I didn't have a page break where it should have been. And then this is page 1 of HAP, and that's 2. So, all right, Jay Mazur is gonna go, actually, Leo.
Using the list in order, 1, 3, 7, 2, 5, 4, 8, 6. Does that make sense to you, Leo? Hello?
Yeah, you start off with 1 for each category.
Can you repeat that again?
No, he's just was going down in the order so that Leo could go down the spreadsheet.
Yeah, it's 1, 3, 7. And then I got lost.
2, 5, 4, 8, 6.
All right. 4, 8, and 6. Okay, got it.
Hey, thank you.
Thank
And
you.
then expense?
Expense, Brett.
Oh, I didn't do that yet.
Okay, so I'm gonna go next, Leo. Hopefully I got it. This is Debbie. 7, 6. 2, 5, 3, 4, 8, 1. Oh, wait. Sorry. Yeah,
Got it. That's for a capital expenses, capital request.
and then expense 132.
1, 3, 2. Okay, perfect.
Jody, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. So I'm gonna do the same thing, Leo, go straight down through. I'm gonna start with 5, 2, 1. Then the next page, 7, 6, 8, 4, 3.
Do you want to just say that one more time since you went fast? 7,
Yeah.
6, 8, 4,
No,
3.
7, 6, 8, 4, 3.
Got it.
And then on expense, I'm gonna do 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
Perfect.
Mary Anderson?
Yeah. Ready, Leo?
Can you hear Mary, Leo?
I'm ready. I think I hear her.
Okay, I'll repeat as needed.
Is it a yes or no? I can't.
Yeah, he's okay.
Okay, so capital, 1, 2, 3, 6, 5, 7, 8, 4.
Okay, Leo, I'm gonna read that out again, going down capital, 1, 2, 3, 6, 5, 7, 8, 4.
Got it.
The expense is 1, 2, 3.
Oh, sorry, and expense 1, 2, 3.
Oh, Mazur's
It's in there.
expenses.
Okay, now we're gonna do Mazur owed you expenses. He's ready
Yes,
to
I
go.
didn't even before. 1, 3, 2.
Got that? 1, 3, 2 for Jay on expenses.
I got it.
Okay, wait, Jim, do you have it yet?
Yeah.
Okay, Jim Berlin coming up.
My expenses are 1, 2, 3.
Again, 1, 2, 3 on expenses.
And the first page of the capital starts with make the following statement.
Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's 1, 4, 5, 7, 8, 6, 2, 3.
1, 4, 5, 7, 8, 6, 2, 3.
Right.
Wait. Did you go yet?
No, I'm not on it.
James
I'm ready
Bosley
to
is
go.
ready to go.
All right, capitals. 2, 6, 7. 3, 5, 1. 4, 8. You want me to repeat that?
Yes.
All right, capital from the top. 2, 6, 7. 3, 5, 1, 4, 8.
Expense.
Expense, 3, 2, sorry. 3, 2, 1.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, Leo, for all of that. I'll do totals and I guess get that out. Okay. I got nothing left in the tank. So what we have, so Jay's brought up, last week, where the MTA world did kind of come to an end. And I guess you want to talk about, like, do we have a role to say something?
So, new business or old business?
I guess.
Huh?
I don't know. It's
Well,
business.
it's new businesses wanting to talk about it.
Because I have old.
I feel like
I
it's
have old business. I just want to bring up briefly.
okay. All right, but Jay's been holding this since the beginning. So I don't, I see this as a city issue that touches on like a million different agencies and not sort of a local one. If anything, the A did better than some, and we actually had one service, but which no one, we didn't have the cancellation of you couldn't go to Brooklyn or Queens for that matter. So I guess you got the floor for a few minutes, but.
No, Debbie has got some of the points I wanted to raise. What worked in this neighborhood and what didn't is a very important consideration. As Maria pointed out, every time there's a big rain, the 157th Street 1 train, you need galoshes to walk around in. Whether the train is running or not is a separate question. It's not safe to walk down the stairs to get to the train. And I rather suspect the passageway where you go between lines, if there is one there, I don't know.
I'm sorry, where are we talking about?
157.
Well, just get your bigger, like, what do you want to do here?
Well, we had a disaster and we're a government agency and neither the city or state was responsive to the needs. The governor is bragging that she had a press conference before the mayor. Our press conference was at 11 in the morning after the rush hour, And the mayor's press conference declaring it an emergency was at 11:45 in the morning, which is, a little late in both instances. The city clearly,
That thing down.
Oh, take it, stop sharing.
Turn it off. Big screen, I'm turning it off.
But
There
we're
are some
still having a
people there.
meeting.
It's not controlling the meeting. Well, okay, we'll leave it on.
Just leave it
We'll
on.
Turn it off before we go.
Cause I'm actually not on the Zoom, so I kind of need it.
all right, in the broadest sense, there was a failure of government, a lack of preparation, a lack of planning. This affected the whole city as well as this neighborhood. There are also specific areas in both Washington Heights and Inwood that are prone to flooding. I'm not sure, Dykeman Street is one. I don't know what, if anything, happened there. But that's one on the top of my mind. I happen to live at the top of the hill. It's not a personal problem for me, except a little water comes in my kitchen. That's not why I'm concerned. I think we should be concerned about the ability of people to get around the city and for the city to function in a business-like manner when these increasingly frequent events occur. And do we or do we not, as a committee and the board, have specific concerns or suggestions? I don't. I just wanted us to discuss it a bit and see what we think.
So
briefly.
Okay. We're not having more discussion tonight. However, but if what you just articulated of there was a lack of preparation and planning that brought the city to halt on an issue that's only going to get worse, extreme weather events. It certainly affects the MTA. It affects emergency management. It affects sanitation. It affects the whole city. If we want to do something on this, I mean, that's a big topic. And I could get behind that. I sort of think it's probably worth a conversation either at executive or with Kathy about that. I could back you up on that. It's hard for me to take to-dos right now, even though I want to do it, but I would say, and I understand your point that we've had this emergency and now is the time to respond to it. But the fact is we have plenty of extreme weather events and it is a huge and one of the most pressing issues of our time. And that maybe it is time seeing it in stark relief on Friday, that maybe it's the moment Thursday or Friday, that maybe this is the moment, right? That we do something as a board. And I think that's a very cool issue. Again, I'm happy to try to raise that in exec or whatever. Mary, your thoughts?
I agree with that because we had the smoke event, okay? And today there was another smoke event, okay, with more burning from Canada, okay? The air quality was not good again today. So, there's that we've had recently, and the prediction for the winter is not good. The prediction for the winter is we're going to have a really bad winter. It's going to be very cold and a lot of snow, according to everything that's forecasted and anywhere you read about it. So, we've got things to think about.
Right. And is this something that goes to the mayor, or does it go, and then maybe, but also the MTA, because it's so fundamental to life in the city, and it's an independent authority. And so the mayor doesn't really cover that. But I think those are
She'd
interesting
be the
questions.
First to tell you.
I will do my best to raise it in an exec of like, is this something like an initiative that we think about as a board? And then like, and how to, relate it, maybe coordinate a borough board or something like that.
Look, I do have one small point. I don't think any question is too big to be discussed on a neighborhood level. You know, there are people who say this is too important a question to discuss in this body or in the executive board or in the board general meeting.
I mean, this sort of existential of like, yes,
Yeah,
you and I have
yeah,
different views about what I think community
The
board, where we're
existence of
responsible
human life
for
is-
portraying the issues and how it relate, how we experience those issues different from the next one. But here we're talking about somewhat global issues. But anyway, we're not going to resolve that tonight, and that's not what's important. I think the suggestion is a good one is, do we take this on as a board? Because no community can ignore it, period, So is that fair, Jim?
Sort of. I think there are specific places in our community that are more vulnerable than others. And the other thing I think that point that Debbie made, which is well taken, is this is not something for our committee, it's something for the whole board. And each committee has to talk about how these extreme events affect. And we could produce a document. But the other side of it, and again, it's not something we should ignore, but when you have 2 months of rain in an hour, no subway city can cope with it. For example, the transit authority, they have special trains with giant pumps to pump out tunnels. And every one of them was exactly where it needed to be. And in fact, had these pump trains not been where they were, it would have taken them even longer to restore the system. So we don't want to beat people up for, not being God. I mean, Mary brings up an interesting example because we have no control over the fires in Canada. In fact, the reality is Canada has no control. That's one of the reasons that, the fires are so big that the entire Canadian government can't deal with them. But that doesn't mean, for example, that there shouldn't be timely warning and stuff like that. But I think, and so there are subtleties that we don't want to get lost. Like I said, should there be adequate warnings and so on and so forth? But, there's just so much preparing you can do. And then if there's too much water, then there you are, and,
Okay, I don't want to have a conversation.
right. No, that's all I wanted to
Yeah,
say.
thank you.
Putting it into a perspective. But this is certainly something we as a community, and in
No,
fact,
it's good, it's
this may
true.
be a citywide initiative,
Yeah.
where every community will talk about their vulnerable spaces. I mean, for example, during whatever that hurricane was, had the water been slightly higher, our whole area would have lost electricity because the 2 substations on Academy Street and Inwood were barely above the rising water. And now they've rearranged things, in that big new building, everything is no longer on the floor and so on and so forth. But again, so I'm not saying we shouldn't have input, but we have to, it's a sort of subtle thing.
Right, but maybe there is something where it populates onto each committee, but let's talk to Kathy. Mary, you had an old business item?
Well, I've been out of the loop for a while because, surgery and rehab and all that stuff, and I just want to raise one issue just to clarify for myself what, if anything, is ever going to happen with this issue. It has to do with MTA and the bus, the M3 in particular, that have cut off the 190 and 193rd. They've eliminated those 2 bus stops going north.
Right.
Okay, and going south, they have eliminated the 190 bus stop. My friend who came to visit me when I was in rehab, you know, she said, well, where do I get the bus to go back? Because she was staying in my house. And I said, right there in front of the pizza shop, which is by Dunkin' Donuts on 190th Street, St. Nicholas. And she went, and that bus stop is no longer downtown bus stop is no longer.
So
That's also eliminated. And I wanted to know if anything from this committee has been, you know, ongoing or is it just?
no, and I will say, when I was at the congressman's office, I did a lot of work on it and I had talked but that didn't happen here. So I think, and we had one idea, but I didn't realize that the southbound stop,
didn't either,
because
until
the
my friend
idea
said,
would have
"Well,
involved using that,
Guess
was,
what?
right, using that spot. So,
We can
So-
formally request that they be restored.
no, it can't, there's more to it. I don't want to get into it right now because they've rerouted it. So it's not even, it doesn't go straight north the way it used to. It goes back around. But so you'd have to do something at where it ends, but it ends kind of in a very deserted place. So if you
Not
could bring
only-
the
not
end
only
point
that, but
down
it's
further
impossible
south.
For the elderly that have to climb up the hill on Fort George Hill to get a bus, or go down the hill on Fort George Hill after they've walked 6 blocks with a walker or a wheelchair or a cane or whatever. This would not happen on the east side. They wouldn't do this on the east side. I'm sorry. I'm enraged about it.
So maybe what we should do, because for a while, I mean, the only sort of the big opportunity we have coming up is the Manhattan bus redesign, right? Which captures this kind of comment. But since they still haven't announced when they're kicking off Manhattan, because we're the last borough to go, I think and now we're a year and change into this, because this was from last summer, that maybe we should put it on the agenda for next month and come up with, and then resolve, make it like a resolution to make the request, and then I can then, because I think there is something.
I have been working with the people who live.
No, I met a lot of all of them in the
I've
other
been
part of my life.
working with the people on Fort George Hill in those North buildings.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I've asked them to get a petition together, which they did.
Right. No, I know. I'm familiar with the players. So so maybe
And
let's
I've
do that.
I've already told them that if, this committee couldn't do something in that direction, that I would pick it up in my aging committee, because it's a big problem for the aging population up there.
Yeah. Yeah, we can do it. Actually, let's do it as a
Visitors for Isabella.
Why can't
Get
we
there.
discuss them in both committees?
Yeah, let's do it as a I think that's because that is really where the rub has been. And I think that there is one compromise position, the 190th thing notwithstanding. So let's put this on our agenda. Do you want to formally put it on yours too for aging? And then is that a good idea, or should we just deal with it here and then?
We have a
Well,
meeting on
wherever we're gonna
Thursday.
start to deal with it, I would like a couple of people from the North Building to come,
Yeah.
because I've already,
Yeah.
because I see them every day, because we all go to the exercise group at the Armory.
Okay.
I think that there are ways to address it from two different points of view, so I don't see how it would be harmful for both committees to discuss it.
Right.
I don't think it's a question of a duplicate resolution or.
No, I just think, and then we can come, it can be a co-sponsored resolution. We'll both
And
bring
the
it.
fact that they redid the route, we don't give a damn that they redid the route. We want to stop there, and then they can redo their routes all they want. We want to
I
stop
am,
there.
trust me, that there's one facet of it that's not going to change because it's more complicated. And can we just deal with it next month? I'm begging people.
Next
I
month.
need to be done.
Yes. I move we adjourn.
But I do think that there's that there can be a way to make it mitigate.
here for November and then I pick it up in December, or how, what do you think? Should we?
No, we should do it in the
Should
same
we have a
month.
joint meeting? I don't know.
No,
No, I think you should be like, why don't you capture the issue at aging, right? And then we're gonna deal with the part about hopefully, here's a suggestion that hopefully if it doesn't completely resolve it, I know, and it's a good one. It's a
look,
good
the
one.
action committee
Okay.
hasn't met yet this month.
No, we're meeting Thursday.
So why don't you discuss this on Thursday and bring us whatever information you have
It's good, yeah.
in November so we could know more.
Okay.
And I second Jim's motion.
Right. Anyone opposed to adjourning?
No,
Okay. we're
thank
adjourned. Now I'm
you.
gonna turn the thing.
Thanks,
Good night.
Marshall. Thanks, Maria.
Have a good night.
Good night. Talk to everybody soon. Thanks, Jody, for taking notes, and Leo for
I'll
getting here and helping out too.